Hello everybody, and welcome to another action-packed episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This channel is brought to you in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to help decide what topics get covered on the channel and get your name the special thanks at the end of each episode, you can sign up for as little as $1 per month over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelate. The link is in the description below. This week's story begins in the secretive African nation of Wakanda, with a young boy named Njadaka, the son of a nobleman named Njobu. Like many Wakandans, his life was forever changed when the international criminal Ulysses Klaw came to his country seeking the rare alien metal vibranium. It was this attack that killed the Wakandan king, T'Chaka, leaving his son T'Challa to one day take up both the throne and the mantle of Black Panther. Meanwhile, Klaw's forces attacked the smaller villages and enslaved any capable men into their mining operations. Because of this, Njobu was killed and young Njadaka was taken. Partly because Klaw had a Wakandan accomplice named Ndemwe who convinced him that the boy was worth keeping. And so when the invaders were repelled by a young T'Challa using one of their own weapons, Ulysses Klaw fled, taking Njadaka with him to South America. It was there that Klaw gave his captive the name Erik, refusing to use what he called a jungle name. Ndemwe watched over Njadaka, teaching him to be a fellow mercenary and to be distrustful of any outsiders. However, when they later traveled to the United States, Njadaka took his opportunity to kill Ndemwe and escape, taking the name Erik Killmonger. Unable to return to his home country, he turned towards completing his education, studying business and earning a PhD in engineering from MIT. However, he passed up an opportunity at a promising career to move back to Harlem and planned his revenge. By this point, Klaw had become a supervillain with sonic powers, but he still engaged in human trafficking and worked with crime lords like Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. And so Killmonger's assassination attempt was thwarted by a mutant mercenary named Knight who worked for the Kingpin. Superhumanly strong, Knight knocked Killmonger out and brought him to her two partners, King, who was telekinetic, and Rook, who had a healing factor. Fisk ordered King to take care of their captive, but it seemed the mutant mercenary had other plans, instead releasing Killmonger and telling him to leave New York. Erik Killmonger was undeterred, but upon returning to his hotel room, he was attacked by a masked gunman. He succeeded in killing his would-be hitman, but this was all a plot by King to test his mettle. Killmonger was recruited into King's group, and together they successfully pulled off a multi-hit job for Fisk. But the Kingpin then decided to truly test them by pitting them against the master assassin known as Bullseye. The gravity of this situation wasn't impressed upon Killmonger upon hearing the name, but he soon learned what he was in for when an explosive bolo wrapped around Rook's neck, killing him instantly. Since King knew that defeating Bullseye wasn't an option, he took the others and fled. Burning their safe house, King went into hiding and advised Erik to let go of his vendettas. Killmonger spent that evening with Knight and offered to bring her back to Wakanda with him after killing Klaw. But Knight instead made a deal with the international espionage agency S.H.I.E.L.D. With her intel, a squad of government agents disguised as Kingpin's men got the drop on Killmonger and captured him. During this captivity, Njadaka prayed to Bast, the Wakandan Panther god, who appeared before him in a vision. Bast told him that he should return to Wakanda and serve his king, but Njadaka blamed the royal family not just for failing to save his parents, but for centuries of racial injustice that his home country did nothing to prevent. Meanwhile, Knight agreed to help get King in exchange for being put into witness protection. And so after S.H.I.E.L.D. smuggled them both out of the country, Knight convinced Killmonger to help her confront King, supposedly to warn him. However, the whole mission went sideways when a team of mercenaries that Knight had hired opened fire. Not only did they fatally wound King, but his wife Celia was caught in the crossfire despite Erik's attempts to save her. Betrayed, Killmonger flew into a rage and slaughtered the mercenaries. But Knight was still stronger than him and defeated him single-handedly. She left him among the bodies, and before he died, King gave Killmonger access to his weapons and resources. Then, while alone in the snow, Killmonger was visited by Killiluna, the Wakandan goddess of war, who offered to help him claim revenge. Over the following year, he grew larger as his goddess granted him strength beyond what any normal human was capable of. He tracked Knight to London and declared that he was holding her sister hostage. He forced her to take a USB drive and plug it into a SHIELD terminal, claiming it would download information on Wakanda. In truth, the drive uploaded incriminating information on Knight, making it seem like she was still operating on the black market. When a squad of SHIELD agents arrived to arrest her, Killmonger slaughtered them before turning his attention back to Knight. He killed her too, but not before revealing that her sister was already dead, completing his revenge against her. Throughout all of that, Killmonger avoided being identified by the authorities. He returned to MIT and was teaching there when Wakanda announced its presence to the outside world. It was there that he met a reclusive man named Horatio Walters. When Walters was in junior high, another student threw a bottle of acid in his face, leaving him permanently scarred. Avoiding people, he found a kinship with snakes and spent years building up an immunity to all but the deadliest venoms. Killmonger first came upon Walters while he was being attacked by a violent group of radicals. He intervened and saved the strange man's life, leaving Walters indebted to him. And so when Killmonger again returned to New York, Walters went with him. And it was there that N'Jadaka finally came face to face with T'Challa. He told the Black Panther about how he'd been taken by Klaw's men and wanted to return home. T'Challa of course agreed to return him to Wakanda, but while they gathered Erik's belongings from his Harlem apartment, Horatio Walters stowed away on board the aircraft and was taken back with him. At the Wakandan capital, Killmonger met the other members of the royal family, including T'Challa's adopted older brother, Hunter the White Wolf. And when the opportunity presented itself, he murdered a Wakandan scientist and used a memory-reading machine to steal plans for advanced weapons. He did the same to other Wakandans who'd been captured by Klaw and recovered, fully embracing the name Erik Killmonger. His ultimate plan was to drop a vibranium shock bomb onto a SHIELD helicarrier, sparking a war between Wakanda and the rest of the world. But his murders were caught on camera, and his plot was foiled by the Black Panther and his sister Shuri. Killmonger, however, escaped capture and slipped away into the wilderness. He returned to his home village and began gathering an army of followers for his revolt against T'Challa, known as the Death Regiments, who then renamed the village N'Jadaka in his honor. He also located the mysterious Altar of Resurrection hidden in a remote area of Wakanda and used its mutagenic radiation to endow several members of his Death Regiments with superhuman powers. This included Baron Macabre, King Cadaver, Salamander Keruel, Malice, and Somber. Another noteworthy, albeit non-powered, follower of Killmonger was Lord Carnage, and Horatio Walters also took a new name, becoming known as Venom with 2 M's. Finally, Erik became romantically involved with a woman known as Madame Slay, but she'll be more relevant a little later. While T'Challa was occupied with a series of international adventures as a member of the Avengers, Attacks from the death regiments drew him back to Wakanda once again. It wasn't long before Killmonger lured the Panther into a confrontation atop Warrior Falls. First, T'Challa was forced to battle his ironically named leopard, Prey, but when the Panther nearly killed the jungle cat, Killmonger intervened and threw his foe from the top of the waterfall. Miraculously, T'Challa survived and was pulled out of the river by his American lover, Monica Lynn. He soon recovered, but he was subjected to a series of attacks from Killmonger's superhuman forces. Innocent Wakandans were caught in the crossfire, including a farmer named Mjumbak, who left behind a young son, Kantu. The Panther counterattacked, bringing the fight to Njidaka village and decimating the death regiments. But Killmonger's plans ultimately culminated in an assault on the royal palace in which his forces unleashed live dinosaurs from Serpent Valley. The Black Panther challenged Killmonger once again, leading to a rematch atop the rushing waterfall. Killmonger again overpowered his foe and was about to finish him off. However, Kantu, the young boy whose father was killed, intervened, pushing Killmonger over the falls and saving T'Challa. While the villain was indeed killed by the rapid waters, his broken body was recovered by his lover, Madame Slay. Wishing to keep his memory alive, she preserved the corpse with secret herbs and watched over him. But one night while she slept, Killmonger's body mysteriously disappeared. In truth, he had been taken by the international crime lord known as the Mandarin, who used his mastery of advanced alien technology to return Killmonger to life. The Wakandan rebel was given one of the Mandarin's 10 rings and unleashed on his home country once again. This time as part of a plot to transform the sacred vibranium mound into the anti-metal known as Antarctic vibranium, which could melt most of the metal on Earth and throw the world into chaos. Fortunately, this scheme was thwarted by the combined efforts of Iron Man and the Black Panther, and after Killmonger was defeated, his reanimated body decayed and the Mandarin's ring returned to its master. Sometime later, Killmonger's remains were obtained by Ulysses Klaw, who somehow used his sonic powers to restore him. This time, T'Challa finally succeeded in defeating him in physical combat, and Killmonger died again. But following this, his ashes were obtained by the remnants of his death regiment and brought back to the resurrection altar in Wakanda. There, they performed a ritual which sacrificed a dozen of their own members to bring Erik Killmonger back in a new host body. This time he plotted to destroy both the Black Panther's international reputation and the Wakandan economy. To this end, he manipulated various superhumans into attacking his enemy, including Hydro Man, the Incredible Hulk, Nightshade, and several others. During all of this, he also found and rescued a rogue Dora Milaje named Nakia, who had been tortured by the insane Reverend Achebe. He recruited her into his ranks, and she subsequently became the new Malice. Killmonger's schemes here had a lot of moving parts, but ultimately moved towards the goal of crashing the Wakandan economy. The Black Panther ultimately prevented this by nationalizing foreign business holdings in Wakanda, in spite of the risk to the global economy as a whole. Since arresting or killing Killmonger would likely have made him a martyr, T'Challa instead challenged him to ritualistic combat at Warrior Falls to reassert his claim to the throne. But this backfired when Killmonger defeated him and claimed the mantle of Black Panther for himself. While T'Challa's allies, Brother Voodoo and Moon Knight, worked to revive him before it was too late, Killmonger attempted to take his place as a member of the Avengers alongside his pet Jaguar Prey. During this time, the previously mentioned villain, Achebe, hired the mercenary Deadpool, hoping to kill this new Black Panther. While that failed, it resulted in Prey's death, leaving Killmonger angrier than ever. He subsequently completed a rite of ascension and earned the opportunity to eat the heart-shaped herb that gives the Black Panthers their power. But because he didn't have the same resistance to the herb's poisons as the Wakandan royal family, he fell into a deep coma. He eventually awakened, however, and declared that he was still the chieftain of the Panther cult. He returned to America and confronted Casper Cole, an NYPD officer who'd taken a Black Panther costume to fight crime. Killmonger offered Cole a modified version of the heart-shaped herb, which was less poisonous, in exchange for filling the role of the White Tiger in his cult. While Cole accepted, he didn't remain loyal to Killmonger and ultimately used the White Tiger identity for more heroic pursuits, allying with T'Challa, who had reclaimed the role of Black Panther. After that, Killmonger forged a secret alliance with the US State Department and traveled to Uganda, an African nation that shared a border with Wakanda. That country was also home to a number of genetically engineered animals created by the Soviet supervillain, the Red Ghost, one of whom was a super-intelligent monkey who supplied Killmonger with more advanced technology. Joined by his previously unmentioned children, Killmonger led a revolt and overthrew the Ugandan government, taking over the country. Iron Man dispatched Monica Rambeau, the Avenger then known as Pulsar, to stop him, but with the Super Primate's technology at his disposal, Killmonger was able to block her assault and capture both her and the Black Panther's sister, Shuri. A war broke out between the two nations, and while the Wakandan forces weren't able to penetrate the force fields protecting Uganda, T'Challa used one of the Mole Man's underground vehicles to dig under them and challenge Killmonger again. Each man donned ceremonial armor and charged at each other for what would perhaps be their final battle. Killmonger overpowered his opponent yet again, but before he could finish him off, Monica Rambeau escaped captivity and flew through his chest, killing him once again. His alleged sons and daughters swore revenge on the Black Panther, but to my knowledge this hasn't yet been followed up on. However, the legacy of N'Jadaka continued on in the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. There's a lot to that story, and while I'm not going to get into all of it, I'm going to be spoiling some of it here, so if you'd like to read that for yourself, you can click off the video now. Here's the relevant part for today's video. Wanting to investigate a possible source for their country's vibranium mound, Wakanda sent an exploratory team out into space. Passing through a temporal wormhole, these explorers landed 2,000 years in the past and established a colony named after their home country that, by the modern day, had grown into an intergalactic empire. And in the modern day, the emperor of this intergalactic Wakanda was named N'Jadaka, after Killmonger's original moniker. And this N'Jadaka had powers of his own thanks to the alien symbiote he wore. He also subjugated his own people, leading to a rebellion that was eventually joined by T'Challa. The Emperor was seemingly killed in a massive battle, but he secretly survived by transferring his consciousness into the symbiote itself and followed T'Challa back to Earth. Once there, the symbiotic N'Jadaka found and bonded with the corpse of Erik Killmonger. Doing so resurrected him once again, and soon the two N'Jadakas were competing for control of their shared form. This all culminated in a massive battle with N'Jadaka and his loyalists on one side, and the forces of Wakanda and her heroic allies on the other. Once again, for the full story and the full scope of that, you can read The Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda. It's probably not too surprising that at the end of it, the forces of good were triumphant and Erik Killmonger was left dead once again. But was that really his final resurrection, or is he destined to someday return again? Have we really seen the last of his supposed children, or are they still plotting their revenge as well? And what about the Emperor? We know from the likes of Venom and Carnage that symbiotes can be very difficult to kill. Maybe we'll get the answers to those questions someday, but for now, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe for more marvelous content. Be sure to leave a comment letting me know what Marvel hero or villain you want to hear about next, and as always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!